May I invite Rajiv Parekh from Red Architects?
Hi, everyone. So I think the topic given by the FOAID team was about, where do we stop designing and start belonging? And what I read into that is the idea of restraint, right? Where do you kind of stop or where do you draw the line? And I think at Red, we always feel like I don't think there's a right or wrong, or there is a definite place where one can draw a line and say that this is what I'm going to do and this is what I'm not going to do. Or to what degree will I do what I do? I'm going to keep showing that. So I just thought I'll start off with what restraint is not to us at Red. It's not minimal, in our opinion. So the slide here is the Cloud Dancer color, which is white, the absence of color, and not the absence of color, actually, the combination of many colors. But either ways, but it's not just doing things. It's not calm, is not sort of restrained to us. So when you look at a calm space, a basic monotone color comes to mind. But I don't think that is what restraint is. Not again, minimalism or restraint is not invisible, is how we look at it. But it's more intentional. I'm obviously jumping slides, but the idea is, I think, to us, what is restraint or critical is when you do something intentionally. So this is a tattoo I have on my own hand, and I think the key aspect, if you notice, is so there's inspired, and of course there's a little bit of branding on my own skin, which is red because we're Red, and that's the company. So there's inspired, and red is in a bracket, and it's written in blue because it's not about the color, so the D is in blue. But what is more critical is if you notice the lines which are kind of framing the rectangle. And that's, okay, I can't walk up to this thing, but nor can I point. So I think what it is that the lines which are framing the rectangle are actually not the lines of the rectangle, but fundamentally you're kind of, all these lines complicating, and the idea is that these are influences in our life, and these influences frame our perspective. And of course, there's room for more influences constantly, which is why, the openness of the rectangle and it keeps moving. So the idea is, where do you stop, right? And that's the restraint of it. Of course, being an architect, being a design firm, we wanted this opportunity to show you some of the projects and to show you where we thought we were restraining ourselves. So this one, which I'm going to talk about very fleetingly, is where we decided to hold back the extent of the footprint that we would leave on the ground. The beauty of it's a project in Kathmandu, and as it happens, the site allows a phenomenal view once you go up. So we basically raised the whole structure up by about 10.2 meters, which allows basically slender columns as the footprint, and then you have a jungle down below, and the actual house kind of floats up above. So the idea of restraint here was that we controlled how much of the ground cover we would do. And that's kind of how the space down below looks, below this sort of larger structure larger structure above. The other project where we thought we'll show you guys is wherein, again, a similar thing, a larger footprint. So ideally, restraint is where you hold back on how much you construct, but there are certain program requirements which is what the client needs. And to sometimes accommodate those really larger-than-life programs, the house becomes large. So this is something where we decided the entire landscape will crawl up onto the roof. So there we kind of floated above the landscape, and here we decided the land will sort of go up above. So literally the left-hand side where you, but the idea is that you can see that the whole sort of ground is covered by a large amount of structure. But then what we've done is that we've taken the ground above, and that's kind of how the space works out. So there's a house in Kandala we're doing, and it's actually a collaboration with Ashish. So we're doing the architecture, and Ashish is doing the interiors. So this that I just thought, we all, of course, everyone knows, I'm assuming most of you guys are architects, so in some way related to the design industry. And we all know about MEES, and we know about less is more. So I just thought we'll do a series where in our project, there are three. So this is where we thought this was less than more. Here we thought a little bit more than less. So if you go back a slide, where we kind of see the arch and you see the ceiling, you see the color tone of the staircase. So I'm kind of just talking very superficial application of materials and colors to be added. Then we added a little bit element more here. And still one step further, where more is even more, right? And here, the sort of the carpet at the bottom becomes an inlay stonework. There's a reflective ceiling. In this case, this is not restraint, but this is where we landed up stopping, right? So at more is even more. And that's kind of just to give you guys, yeah. And if you look at all three of them together, it gives you a sense of where we should have known to stop. May not have been the precise location, may not have been the right location, but that is where we landed up stopping. This is another example in the same project where we kind of had these series of arches and we built off on that. It opened up to a courtyard. It was a supersized dining area. And this is what we thought was where we started originally. And then the columns, we decided that, as a play, we said, okay, some of them are dummy columns, so we were able to play around with it where the columns look like they're sort of semi-suspended or not as heavy and bulky. But then we took it one step further and we made all the dining chairs in 18 different colors, right? So, of course, in this case, we stopped at this point. But again, the idea being not right or wrong, the idea being where you choose to exercise restraint and to what degree. This was another one where, again, 8.2 meters living room space, large bar at the back of it, and typically maybe you would have put up an artwork or something else on the back. That should be a video which plays there. So the idea is that we used an active LED screen, and so effectively it's supersized. It's about a 6-meter high screen. And then, of course, the clients are using it for all sorts of stuff, including some digital art to start with. But they've started using it for events, friends, just random things to project onto a screen. And since we are in the digital world all the time, everywhere, so this kind of worked out for them. But that's, again, the sort of back and forth of it. This is something else that we did. And in this case, this was a tall space, and the clients typically, I always tell our clients, like, when you're giving us a brief, don't hesitate, ask for the sun and the moon and sky, and assume you have unlimited budget and assume you have unlimited space. Then allow us to interpret your brief and figure out how much of it we can actually distill in. And in that vein, we kind of did this space where it was just an entertainment floor, and so that's about a 20-foot by 17-foot platform, which is supported only on one side. And the reason to motorize is then to have a staircase which goes up and down. What allows is because at some time, the Sun wants to have an event where, if you see the supersized screen, those are actually 16 55-inch TVs which are stitched together to create a large screen. And the advantage is that depending on how they're hosting, depending on what the event is, they're able to use the space accordingly. So there's a poker table and a pool table on top. There's just a general sitting area. The dining table kind of splits up, and you can set up as a buffet, or you can set up together. And of course, when you want to have a poker, and I think they have F1 screening, so they all watch a fair amount of the F1 races. But that was, in that sense, I don't know would you qualify that as exercising restraint or doing too much? So this was another, excuse me. This is another example where we did a client's home, and they are Srinathji followers, and it's vertically connected across 4 floors, and so we used that central courtyard space, which otherwise would have been dark and dingy. We opened it up at the terrace, we cut the slab, and we put a water body on top, and along the entire vertical wall, we worked with an artist to kind of develop a 2D of the Pichwai artwork, but we got it sculpted in white Indian stone. And the water kind of on top creates this sort of beautiful shadow play throughout. So it's an agitated water body which is 6 inches deep. So it almost works like a pool with a filtration plant. But it basically ensures that sunlight comes in, no heat comes in, stays clean, so you don't have to clean the glass because the water is cleaning itself all the time. They do have frequent pigeon droppings, which has to be cleaned, but still working, and the clients are okay with having it cleaned periodically. This was another example where our thought was basically this is across 5 floors, and it's the same powder bathroom. And then we thought that rather than kind of consistently designing each of them in a different way, we took the same design, but just changed the material. So, to your left is copper, then there's brass. Sorry, the other way around. There's brass, then there's copper, then there's green, which is epoxy. There's mild steel, and lastly, it's wood. But fundamentally, it's the same design, and of course, our obsession with basins. So, this was one of the earlier explorations of that. But again, so simple fluting, very basic as a design, just the form of the roof. But again, in that sense, it was just a singular material which kind of monopolized that entire experience of that powder bathroom. Another sort of example where there are enough projects where you have large ceiling heights, and if that's being used as a wardrobe, in this case, this was a large enough walk-in wardrobe, about double the size of this stage that I'm on. And we said, okay, rather than sort of using it as a loft, we've managed to put in a small hydraulic elevator, which takes you up, and therefore the wardrobe is split over 2 levels. Again, but rather than having a series of shutters, so typically wardrobes, you'll have shutter, 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 shutter. Of course, it's a large enough space. So what we've done instead is that we've kind of created a fabric shutter. So the entire 20-foot wardrobe along one line goes up, and you see all the clothes in one shot. And when it comes down, it's more like a dust-free cover for the period of time that you're not using the wardrobe. But when you walk into the space, you're kind of seeing the entire, all your garments and all your sort of belongings in one shot. So this is also something that we've done a while back, where you kind of typically tend to do washrooms and walk-in wardrobes as separate spaces. For a long time now, we've kind of figured that removing that segregation allows space, in our opinion, to function more seamlessly, because the act of getting ready is what you use in your day-to-day existence. And towards that end, we've kind of, again, we always play around with how the wall kind of shifts a little bit, gives you a bench, the WC gets smaller, wardrobes all around, and it's kind of open, so the whole space lends itself to being much brighter and not as boxy and smaller. So you kind of, thank you. So I did this whole presentation, in fact, recently at Kohler, and I realized that it's kind of, it's about Red's explorations with water, and the whole attempt or endeavor has always been that rather than all of us directing water, since water is probably is one of the mediums which kind of tends to find its own way, which is why a lot of the structures tend to leak. But the idea is that if I create opportunity for water to find its own way differently each time, it changes how I'm thinking of designing basins in general. And then sort of I started dwelling more on the attributes of water and what is it that really kind of makes water flow. So therefore, kind of, I'm jumping this. This is just, this is Games of Thrones. I'm sure most of you all have seen it. But the idea is to let water flow. So we've kind of done this, which we recently got an Adidas for. And the idea here, this is something we're doing in Hyderabad for a client of ours. And this is 3 wash basins, basically, which are in the landscape, which are these floating balls of solid Indian stone. They're spheres, simple, perfect spheres. But the idea is that we're playing with the fact that water has surface tension. And the act of surface tension makes sure that the water doesn't run off the edge and just falls off the edge of the sphere, but it kind of hugs down. Similar to why we kind of do a chajja and we kind of have a drip mold or a pani patti at the end. So it just plays off from that, and therefore the kind of water comes down and then trickles down pretty much at the bottom center of the sphere. This is the last slide, and it's just, that's Shweta from my office, and that's her hand. She's the model. But basically going to show that, when water runs off and trickles down, it continues to hug the sphere. And so thank you, guys. Thank you for your patience.